My name is Samantha. I'm 21 years old, and at that moment, I realized my life was about to shatter in ways I could never have imagined. The people I trusted most weren't just failing me, they were plotting to use me. I was halfway down the staircase when I heard my father say it. Calm, practical, like he was revising a budget, not detonating a life. "Don't panic, James. We'll have your sister take care of it." The words froze me on the carpet runner, one hand gripping the banister. It was past midnight in our Pennsylvania split level, the kind of quiet where a clock sounds like a hammer. Below me, the kitchen light made a triangle on the hallway floor. My brother's voice floated up, small and scared for once. All of it, my father replied. "She'll never say no to family. We'll frame it as an investment. She's always wanted to be included." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I'd driven home for my mom's birthday with a carefully chosen gift and the stupid hope that this time, just maybe, someone would notice everything I'd built on my own. Instead, I stood in the dark while the two people who should have protected me mapped out how to strap my hard work to my brother's mistakes and push it off a cliff. Before I tell you what I did next, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. And if you've ever had to protect yourself from the people who were supposed to protect you, hit like and subscribe so this story finds the folks who need it. Now back to that staircase. "Her credit's pristine," my father continued, low and steady. "She qualifies for the big numbers. We'll start with a family franchise idea. Papers, projections, the whole thing. She signs, we're clear." A chair scraped. My mother's voice joined them, hushed but sharp. "Samantha should contribute. Family helps family." My name, like a code being entered. I took one backward step, then another, the old wood groaning under my heel. If they heard me, I was finished, talked down, guilt cornered. I'd survived their favoritism for 28 years, but this wasn't favoritism. It was a plan. I made it back to the guest room that used to be mine before my childhood got boxed and labeled holiday decor. I locked the door. I sat on the edge of the bed. And for the first time in my life, I let myself consider the unthinkable. I might have to choose between family and survival. Between a last name and a future. That night would not have surprised the little girl I used to be. She met this dynamic a long time ago. Let me introduce you to her quickly, so you understand why I refused to play the role they wrote for me. I was the dependable child. The good report cards, the quiet room, the "don't worry about her, she's fine" daughter. Our house looked like every other house on our street. Hydrangeas by the porch, a flag on summer weekends, a neat driveway that always, somehow, contained more for my brother than for me. When James arrived 5 years after me, the center of gravity in our home shifted with the force of a riptide. My white particle board bookcase held library paperbacks. His room got a custom mural with LED lights that pulsed to whatever game he was playing that week. My birthdays were quality time, and a sweater that was great for school. His included scavenger hunts, balloon arches, and the latest console on release day. "Girls are sturdy," my mom liked to say. "Boys need more encouragement," my dad added. Funny how encouragement looked exactly like money, attention, and permission, while sturdy looked exactly like being invisible. By 10, I loaded the dishwasher every night. By 12, I was the default babysitter. If I asked why James didn't have chores, I got a sigh. "He's just a boy, Samantha." As if my gender came with a toolkit I never ordered. I learned the household's operating system early. James first, Samantha later. James loud, Samantha quiet. James needs, Samantha manages. One Christmas I asked for a basic laptop for school. I'd researched models, printed a price, made my case. I unwrapped a used wheezing machine that died if you looked at it wrong. 2 hours later, James tore open the exact gaming rig he'd circled in neon marker. "It helps his hand-eye," my dad said, like the brochure had coached him. I swallowed the lump and told myself to be grateful. Gratitude was the house religion. At 16, I got a job bagging groceries because I wanted freedom that didn't require approval. When I told my dad my schedule, he clapped my shoulder. Work builds character. When James texted for cash from his bedroom, it built confidence. "Don't miss these years," my mom would say if I balanced a shift and an algebra test. "You'll regret it." I already knew what regret felt like. Watching them frame James's participation ribbons while my honor society certificate curled in a drawer. So I did what kids like me always do. I made a plan to earn the life they wouldn't hand me. I studied like it was a sport. I saved like it was oxygen. I learned not to ask for things it would hurt to be denied. Senior year valedictorian. I stood at a podium and talked about resilience. From the stage I watched my parents do what they always did. Remind James to clap at the right time. College was a spreadsheet. 1,000 tiny calculations. I landed a partial scholarship that covered a slice of tuition, then patched the rest with work. Weekdays at the library, weekends behind an espresso machine, midnight study sessions with cheap noodles and mint gum to trick my brain into staying awake. I lived on 4 to 5 hours sleep and pride. Use your savings, my mom said when I asked about a class trip that cost less than the cleats they bought James that same month. We're saving for your brother's future, my dad added. James was still 3 years shy of college, but somehow his future arrived early and demanded tribute. The difference wasn't just dollars. It was time, attention, presence. They never missed a single one of James's soccer games. My academic awards? We knew you'd do great without us. The praise that doubles as absence. If you're nodding along right now because this feels too familiar, take a second and tap like. It matters for the channel, sure, but it also tells the algorithm to deliver stories like this to people who need to hear. You are not imagining it. By sophomore year, I switched from economics to finance because numbers didn't gaslight me. Spreadsheets never said, "You're overreacting." A balance sheet tells the truth if you ask the right question. I was good at it. Good in the way that makes professors remember your name and email you internships with subject lines like, "Thought of you." I spent a summer in New York at a firm that taught me more in 10 weeks than any class had in 10 months. I returned to campus knowing two things. One day I'd pay off every loan with my own signature, and New York's skyline had put a hook in me I didn't want to remove. Graduation came. Summa cum laude. 2 job offers. I took the one with the meanest learning curve and the smartest team. My apartment was a shoebox with light at exactly 4:15 p.m. that made the wall look golden. I bought a secondhand sofa, 3 plants that would forgive a busy schedule, and a coffee maker that I treated better than most of the dates I said yes to that first year. I built safety nets in layers. Emergency fund, loan payoff plan, retirement contributions automated like clockwork, and a separate account that I nicknamed Keys. Not because I had a house in mind yet, but because the concept of a key that fit a lock I owned felt like a spell. When my loans hit zero at 26, I cried on my bathroom floor. Not because I was sad, but because the number on that screen represented 1,000 decisions no one had ever helped me make. At 27, I bought a 1-bedroom condo in Brooklyn. Nothing fancy. A real home. My name on the deed. My signature on the mortgage. My breath steady in a space that was mine. You'd think that would be the moment my parents finally looked up and saw me. It wasn't. The phone calls remained the same. James had this new opportunity, James needed that new device, James. I visited a couple of times a year, smiled through dinners that revolved around my brother's latest plan, went home and watered my plants. And then came my mother's 55th birthday. I bought her a handbag she'd been joking about for months and drove down for the weekend. I told myself I was going for me, that I could sit in my old living room and be my adult self. That it wouldn't hurt. It hurt. Dinner was lasagna and the sound of my dad asking James if he'd decided which coding bootcamp he wanted them to pay for. "It's a great investment," my mom said, pouring wine. I took a tiny sip and stared at the water rings on the table that used to hold my science fair projects. James smirked at me over his glass. "How's corporate life, sis?" "Busy," I said. "Good. It's amazing how a single syllable can mean, I have built a life without you. It's amazing how rarely the people who should hear it do." Later, dishes stacked and wiped, my parents went to bed. James disappeared to see friends. I lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling fan. The house smelled exactly like my childhood, fabric softener and something I can only call Sunday. I wanted to sleep in that smell just once without wanting anything else. I went downstairs for a glass of water and stopped when the front door clicked. James. And my father, awake again. I slid into the shadow by the stairs because I'm a woman who's learned how to make herself small when safety requires it. "What's the number?" my dad asked. James's voice was ash. 40. I didn't know what 40 meant until my father said, "We can't tell your mother that. We'll fix it. And then, we'll make your sister cover it." $40,000 of online gambling and cards he should never have qualified for. $40,000 of the exact opposite of everything I did for a decade. And the solution, their solution, was my name. My signature. My future. They talked logistics. Not if. How. A family franchise that would include me. A loan I'd qualify for in an afternoon. Returns. Partnership. Words that were safe in my mouth when I said them at work turned into weapons in theirs. My mother patted in a minute later, robe tied tight. Samantha should help, she said as if I'd walked in and volunteered. I backed up the stairs and shut my door without hearing the rest, because I had already heard enough forever. Here's the thing about working in finance for years. When panic comes, a part of your brain will still balance a ledger. I sat at the desk under the window that used to face my lavender childhood walls and made a list. Freeze what can be frozen tonight. Move what can be moved. Document everything. Leave quietly. I wasn't dramatic about it. No note with a manifesto. No confrontation that they'd twist into hysterical daughter overreacts. Just a simple lie to make space for the truth. Emergency at work. Had to leave early. Happy birthday, Mom. At 2:57 a.m. I slipped down the stairs and past the photo wall where my brother's face ages every frame while mine is there, then gone, then there, then partly cropped. My rental car started on the first turn like it was on my side. I drove 20 minutes to an airport hotel and felt my pulse drop below thunder for the first time in hours. Inside, I opened my laptop and went to war. Not with them, but with any hole in the fence they might try to crawl through. I moved most of the cash from my primary bank to a secondary they didn't know existed. I put travel alerts and verbal passwords on every account. I froze my main credit card under the guise of lost, so any numbers they had written down became worthless. I emailed my advisor with the subject line urgent, security review, and booked a consult with a financial abuse attorney who took Sunday calls. Then I did something that felt both small and like I was hauling a boulder. I removed my parents as emergency contacts anywhere they still lingered. Factor. Bank. Difference. HR portal. The paperwork version of cutting the last string. By the time dawn put a gray seam under the blackout curtains, I had a plan. I also had a trembling in my hands I couldn't control. So I did the next right, ordinary thing. I ordered scrambled eggs from room service and ate them staring out at a parking lot. You cannot fix a nervous system with a spreadsheet alone. Sometimes you need salt and coffee. The text started after 9. First my mom. Where did you go? Come back for breakfast. Then an hour later. This is childish, Samantha. Then you are embarrassing us. My father followed with, we need to talk about a family opportunity. James didn't text. He never texts unless he wants something. I changed my flight to the earliest seat back to New York and turned my phone face down. On the plane, I tried to cry but only managed to blink hard for an hour. It's strange how grief behaves when it's for a thing you never had. It comes in waves and looks like relief. I unlocked my apartment that evening and stood in the quiet. My plants were fine. The room smelled like lemon cleaner and paper. I opened the windows. Air moved. I sat on the floor with my back against the couch and exhaled like I was setting down a backpack I'd been carrying since I was 12. If you've made it this far, you're my people. Do me a favor. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens when I stop being the responsible one and start being the person who protects the responsible one. And tap like if you've ever had to make a boundary out of thin air. Because the next part is where the story shifts. From surviving a family system to dismantling the parts of it that had their hands in my wallet. Sunday morning looked like this. 3 voicemails from my father, 2 from my mother, 1 from an aunt who loves the theater of other people's crises. I listened to none of them. I called my advisor instead. We did a top-to-bottom lockdown, 2-factor everywhere, new email routing for financial statements, credit freezes at all 3 bureaus, and flags on my profile that required a live verbal password for any future loans. She wasn't surprised. Unfortunately, she said gently, this happens more than you'd think. Especially when there's one capable child and one not. I booked a video consult with the attorney and told her everything. She was brisk, focused, and exactly the kind of person you want on your side in a storm. Document, she said. Write down what you heard while it's fresh. Save screenshots. If they try anything, open a line of credit, submit an application, call me. We'll make it expensive for them to keep trying. Monday I took a personal day and did the boring, powerful things that keep wolves outside. Updated beneficiaries, changed every password to strings only a sleep-deprived me could love, retitled one account so it no longer resembled my last name, and set my phone to send any unknown number to voicemail. At lunchtime I stood by the window with a sandwich and admitted something out loud to my own kitchen. They will never love me the way I needed them to. It didn't break me. Steadied me. Tuesday I went back to work. I smiled. I answered emails. I built a model that made a client happy. My coworkers asked if I'd had a good weekend and I said, it was clarifying. No one pushed. Thank God. That night I texted my parents and brother one sentence. I will call tonight at 8 p.m. Please be available together. If there was going to be a confrontation, it would be on my schedule from my desk with my webcam framing me as the adult I am, not the child they prefer. At 8 o'clock on the dot, their faces appeared. My mom's eyes were already wet. My dad's jaw was set. James leaned back like he was at a movie he might leave early. Where did you? My mom started. I heard you, I said, calm as the attorney told me to be. Friday night. The plan. The amount. The way you used my name like a lever. Silence. Then my father's old favorite. You misunderstood. No, I said. I didn't. I laid it out, what I'd heard, what I'd done, what I would never do. I told them I would not co-sign, invest, lend, or tie my credit to theirs in any way. I told them I'd documented the conversation and secured counsel. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I spoke like I was reading a weather report. My mother tried the guilt script. My father tried the insult. James tried a sneer. None of it landed. Boundaries are funny that way. The minute you build one, you realize it's as much for you as it is for them. This conversation is over, I said at last. Do not contact me again unless it's to apologize, and do not involve my name or information in any application, account, or plan. Ever. I ended the call. Then I opened a Word document and wrote down every detail I could remember, from the 40 that made my stomach drop to my father's exact cadence when he said, "We'll have your sister take care of it." I saved it to a folder named Record. I backed it up to the cloud. I emailed it to my attorney with the subject line, Factual Memo, 12:11 a.m. I slept badly. I woke steady. And that brings us to the edge of part 2, when my family discovers that the responsible one is only responsible for herself, and expensive consequences have a way of finding the people who outsource theirs. Stay with me. I didn't sleep that night. The words replayed in my mind on an endless loop. We'll have your sister take care of it. My body felt like lead, but my thoughts were jagged lightning, burning me from the inside out. I was 21 years old, sitting in the dark on my childhood bed, staring at posters that no longer felt like mine. The house around me was the same, yet nothing was the same anymore. My father's calm betrayal had rewired the walls, poisoned the air. By 4 a.m. the quiet had a sound, heater vents ticking, the clock coughing out seconds, the far-off hum of a highway I'd never noticed until now. I kept thinking, if I don't move, maybe time won't either. But it did. Dawn bled in, thin and gray, and with it came a decision that felt like standing up in a moving train. If they were going to treat me like a resource, not a daughter, then I would treat this like what it was. A problem with parameters, choices, and consequences. I was done hoping they'd be better people. I would be a better strategist. At 6:12, I opened a new note on my phone and titled it Plan Lavender. I don't know why. Maybe because I wanted something gentler than what I was about to do. I listed 6 columns. Evidence, money, allies, barriers, timeline, exit. Evidence, Friday midnight. Kitchen. Dad to James, don't panic. We'll have your sister take care of it. $40,000 in gambling and CC debt. Plan, fake, family business, loan in my name. Heard Mom's voice. She said, family helps family. It's time she contributed back. Money, checking, parents no bank. Savings, only I know. Student account, campus CU. Emergency cash, dresser. Allies, Alyssa roommate. Professor Reed, finance compliance background. Ms. Hahn, diner manager, will swap shifts. Legal. Financial counselor. Barriers. I live here on weekends. They know my schedule. They think I crave approval. They will pressure. Timeline. They'll pitch business after dinner Saturday. Dad's pattern. Plant seed, work me over summer signature. Exit. Freeze credit. Lock accounts. Move documents. Record everything. Don't confront until protected. The list steadied my hands. By 6:30, I slipped into jeans and a hoodie and padded down the hall. James's door was half closed. His lamp glowed over a slumped shape at the desk. A pile of poker chips, real ones, sat like a bruise on the wood. I stood in the doorway long enough to feel my heartbeat in my ears. If I shook him awake now and said I know, we'd be trapped in the same old dance. He'd cry, promise, blame, stress, beg, and I'd end up carrying the weight of protecting him from himself. I stepped back and let the door ease shut. The kitchen smelled like stale coffee. I put the kettle on, took the family landline off the hook, habit from childhood, and dialed my bank from my cell. I'd like a verbal password on all accounts, I said, voice calm. No changes without it. No phone or branch access unless I say the word. The rep asked for the word. I looked at the window where frost had feathered the glass. Pine cone, I said, and wrote it next to evidence with a small, hard dot. Next call, the 3 credit bureaus. Place a fraud alert on my file. Then a security freeze. Then a lock on my SSN with the IRS PIN program. I didn't wait for permission to protect myself. If you're watching this and a churning dread is blooming in your stomach because you recognize this kind of family pressure, pause this video after you hit like and subscribe and do that one thing for yourself today. Lock your credit. You don't need anyone's blessing to guard your future. By 7, the house was stirring. My mother, apron already tied, smile already painted on, floated in. Up early. That's my responsible girl. My father followed, tapping his phone. He didn't meet my eyes. James stumbled in last, hair damp, face puffy with sleep, and I suspected something stronger than fear. I'll grab groceries, I said. We're low on milk. I never went to the store on Saturday mornings. My mother cocked her head, but I was already zipping my coat. The air outside slapped me awake. In the car, I didn't start the engine. I pulled my phone, opened voice memos, and created a folder. Kitchen, triangle of light. It was where they talked. That folder would either save me or burn me down. I wasn't sure which outcome scared me more. I drove first to the campus credit union and moved the bulk of my savings to a new sub-account under a deliberately boring name, Textbook Fund. Then to a different bank across town to open a safe deposit box. I put inside my passport, social security card, birth certificate, and the worn envelope with my last 3 pay stubs. Back at the store, I stood in the cereal aisle and remembered being 8, asking for the colorful box with the puzzle on the back, and hearing we can't afford frills. The same week James got a remote control car because boys need toys. It wasn't the car, it was the lesson. We had both learned it too well. By the time I returned, the house smelled like cinnamon and the living room TV was set to low-volume college basketball. We're doing Giovanni's tonight, my mother sang out, pretending the words didn't scrape. 6 o'clock. Dress nice. Dad nodded, eyes on his phone, thumbs moving like he was texting himself instructions for how to be me. Agreeable, efficient, available. I spent the afternoon in my room, pulling a thin sweater over the shaking in my arms and drafting emails I didn't send yet. To Professor Reed, question about fiduciary duty and family loans, hypothetical. To Alyssa, can you room swap me to full-time? Need to stay on campus. To Ms. Hahn, can we switch my Sunday double to Monday/Tuesday? Family stuff. Then I held the phone and recorded what I remembered from last night line by line verbatim. Don't panic, James. We'll have your sister take care of it. I said it out loud and it didn't sound like my father. It sounded like an accountant closing a file. Giovanni's was dim, all amber glass and candles. The waiter called my mother Ms. Wilson, with a reverence I'd never heard in our kitchen. We ordered, we smiled. Dad told a sanitized story about a client audit. James leaned back like he owned gravity. I waited. The pitch came with dessert. Samantha, Dad began, tone airy, your mother and I have been thinking. It's time for us to do something together as a family. You know, build something. Passive income. A franchise maybe. Or a small property. Nothing huge. Just the start of a portfolio. A portfolio. They weren't even going to try to hide the bait. That's interesting, I said, careful to keep my voice level. What would the capital stack look like? I didn't miss the flicker in his eyes. He wasn't expecting me to speak his language. Well, he said slowly, initial seed from you, short term of course, so everything can be in one place and we can move quickly. Then we roll cash flows back in. Win-win. He smiled around the table, the benevolent patriarch congratulating us on agreeing with him. Do you have a prospectus? A pro forma? Something I can review? I said. Also, if we're investing, we'll need an operating agreement. Position titles. Voting rights. Cap table. James laughed, sharp and unkind. God, Sam, can't you just do something without turning it into homework? My mother touched his wrist. My father's mouth twitched. We're family, Dad said gently as if I were a skittish horse. We don't need to overcomplicate this. Family. The word was a key they slid into a lock they assumed I couldn't change. I took a sip of water to hide the way my lips trembled. Email me, I said. Everything. My voice didn't break. The candle shook instead. Back home, I put my phone on the hallway shelf under the plant and stepped into the kitchen to help with leftovers, angle right toward the triangle of light. So, my mother started, closing the refrigerator with her hip. I think it's wonderful that you'll finally be part of something this family is building. She said finally like an accusation. I stirred a pot that didn't need stirring. The phone glowed once, then blackened, recording everything. We'll get her to sign quickly, Dad said behind me in a voice he never used in front of me. Before she starts fussing. Summer at the latest. Rates will tick up. James muttered something I didn't catch. My mother shushed him. It's time she contributed, she said. I carried the pot to the stove, turned off the burner and exhaled very slowly. The recording would hold. My spine wouldn't. Not much longer. Back in my room, I put the phone on my pillow and listened to the file. My father's voice was precise. My mother's was an instrument. James's, low, reluctant, was the only one that sounded like he might still be reachable. The thought disgusted me. Reachable was how I'd become the emergency exit of this house. I sent one email. Subject. Question re. Family loan/ethics hypothetical. Dear Professor Reed, I've encountered a scenario where parents want a child to take a personal loan to fund a family business, with the implied promise of repayment. There's a history of differential treatment and past control. If pressure is applied emotionally rather than financially, are there protections? Could this be considered coercive or abusive from a compliance standpoint? Also, best practices for protecting oneself without escalating harm? Her reply arrived at 11:32 p.m. Document everything. Keep your assets separate. Do not sign anything without independent counsel. If you need referrals, I have them. I slept for 2 hours, dreamless. In the morning, I drove to the diner and told Ms. Han I needed to swap shifts for the next month. She looked at my face for a long time. Take the back booth on your break, she said. Coffee's on me. Ms. Han had fed half the town through closings, divorces, layoffs, and blackouts. She didn't ask questions she knew I wasn't ready to answer. She slid a plate of scrambled eggs across the counter. You can't do paperwork on an empty stomach, she said. Everyone thinks you can. You can't. Between refills and receipts, I drafted my second list. Rules from now on. Don't be alone with Dad when he's pitching. Don't respond to guilt. Respond only to documents. If they escalate, leave. Keep cash on hand. The first no will be the hardest. Don't apologize for protecting yourself. At noon, I stepped out to take a call from a number I didn't recognize. Samantha, a man said. This is Aaron Levin. Professor Reed gave me your info. She said you might need discreet advice. His voice had the cadence of someone who lived in footnotes in courtrooms. We scheduled a call for Monday under the heading Mentoring. Back home, the house felt staged. Throw pillows aligned, magazines fanned out, a candle burning a scent called family room that made my stomach turn. My mother stood at the sink, scrubbing a clean dish. You know your father worries, she said without looking at me, like we were picking up a conversation we hadn't started. He wants you secure. We both do. This is a way to ensure that. I'm already secure, I said. I did that. The words came out too fast. She set the dish down and faced me, eyes bright and wet. We fed you, housed you, taught you to be responsible. We made you who you are. I stared at the lemon-scented foam on her hands. You taught me that my needs were negotiable, I said softly. That I was the plan B for everyone else. Her mouth tightened. We don't have to fight, she said. We just need you to sign. That night, James knocked on my door. He didn't come in. Can we talk? He asked, voice small. I let him stand in the doorway because I didn't want him in my room. I screwed up, he said. I'm fixing it. I just need a bridge. I thought of the poker chips, the credit lines, the fake business. A bridge is something you build, I said. Not something you take from the person you set on fire. He flinched. Dad said you'd make it difficult. There was. Not right, not wrong. Just difficult. Like I was a stain on their calendar. Dad's wrong, I said. I'm going to make it impossible. He looked at me like I'd broken a rule he didn't know existed. Then he left. On Monday, I sat in a campus study room with my laptop, 3 pens, and my back pressed to a chair like it might stop me from floating away. Aaron Levin appeared in my Zoom window. Wire-rimmed glasses, neat beard, eyes that made a space feel safer. I'm not your lawyer yet, he said, but I can help you think. I told him the whole story, careful, clinical, like a deposition. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he summarized it back to me in language that steadied my heart. You've been targeted for a coerced loan under false pretenses by people who know your patterns. You've taken appropriate first steps. Freezes, passwords, document protection, contemporaneous notes. There are 3 tracks from here. Prevent, deter, document. We'll run all 3. He had me email him the audio. He listened, eyes narrowed, and nodded once when my father's sentence landed. We'll make your sister pay for everything. This is explicit, he said. You won't be signing anything. Meanwhile, they might try a soft approach, just look this over, and a hard approach. Are you saying you don't love us? We'll prepare scripts. Scripts? I asked, half laughing. Like a play. Like a fire drill, he said. We say certain sentences not because they will convince them but because they will protect you. He read them off and I wrote them down. I won't sign anything without independent legal counsel, and my counsel has advised me not to proceed. I do not consent to using my credit for any family venture. Please communicate by email so I can review details. This conversation is over. Then leave. Also, he added, you need to relocate your physical self. Can you stop staying at their house? I nodded. I can move full-time to campus. Do it, he said. And Samantha, if they try to apply anywhere with your info, the freezes hold. But we'll place a fraud alert with your local PD to create a paper trail. He paused. Do you want to pursue restraining action later? The question stunned me. Court was a place for other people's families. I don't know, I admitted. Let's just get you safe. When our call ended, I sat in the empty room and shook. Not with fear exactly. With the cold exhaustion of someone who'd carried groceries up 9 flights and finally set the bags down. Then I called Alyssa. Can you move back? She asked. Yes, I said. Then move back, she replied. I'll clear your half of the closet. Also, I'm making pasta. That evening, I told my mother I'd be staying at school for midterms. She took it as an insult. We make this nice for you and you just leave. Midterms, I repeated. She threw a dish towel onto the counter and laughed without humor. Samantha, your father has so much on his plate. Do you know what it feels like to always be the one who has to solve everything? I could have screamed. Instead, I do, I said. I know better than anyone. I left before dinner. In the rearview mirror, the house shrank until it was just a shape on a familiar street that would someday be a story I told about a person I used to be. Campus felt like oxygen. Alyssa had lit a cheap vanilla candle and set a mug on my desk with "You've got this" in goofy script. I'll be your alibi, she announced, then softened. Sorry, that came out wrong. No, I said and surprised myself by laughing. That's exactly what I need. Tuesday morning my father called. I let it go to voicemail. We'll come by campus tonight, he said. Family dinner. Bring your laptop, we'll run some numbers. It'll be good practice for your career. I forwarded the message to Aaron. He replied, do not meet alone. Public place. Keep it short. Record. We met at a brightly lit chain restaurant near campus, the kind with laminated menus and cheerful music. I chose it because it felt impossible to be cornered under fluorescent lights. They arrived looking like a family in a brochure. My mother neat, my father pressed, James with a hoodie artfully wrinkled to say I still get to be the child. After the waitress took our orders, my father slid a folder across the table. Business summary, he said. You can look it over while we talk. I didn't touch it. I'll review anything by email, I said. My counsel asked me not to accept physical copies outside formal channels. My mother blinked. You're what? Counsel, I repeated. Independent legal advice. There was a beat of silence. Then my father laughed softly. Samantha, be serious. I am, I said. I won't sign or discuss terms without independent counsel. I had rehearsed the sentence so many times it felt like a handrail. My mother leaned forward, voice soft and urgent. Honey, we're trying to include you. For once. Don't you want that? I kept my eyes on hers so I wouldn't drown. I want a healthy relationship, I said. Not a contract with a trapdoor. James slumped. Why do you always make everything so dramatic? Because you're asking me to take a loan for your gambling debt, I said. The word landed like a dropped plate. My mother recoiled. My father's eyes went fierce. James went very still. This is inappropriate, my father said, jaw rigid. We are not discussing personal matters in a public place. Correct, I said. We are not discussing them anywhere. Not without counsel. Not without documents that reflect reality. I slid my phone onto the table and tapped the screen to wake the recording app. Clear enough to be seen, not obvious enough to break the law in a two-party state, I had checked. In my state, one-party consent applied. My father's face tightened. He understood what that ember of red light meant. I had learned a new language and it wasn't please. Let's go, he said. He stood. My mother followed. James lingered, eyes searching mine for something. Permission? Absolution? Sem, he said. What if I promise? Promises don't pay interest, I said softly. Get help. They left me with a bill I hadn't ordered and a waitress who said, Are you okay? In a voice people use for strangers they will never see again. I tipped too much. Then I sat in my car and let my forehead rest against the steering wheel until it cooled the heat under my skin. The next week was quiet like a field before a storm. Then the emails started. Subject: Family Venture. From Dad. Please send me your SSN so we can add you to the documents. This is time sensitive. Subject: Urgent. From Mom. Your father is devastated. Stop this foolishness. You will regret it. Subject: No subject. From James. Fine. Keep your money. Hope your precious career hugs you when you're old. I forwarded each to Aaron. He replied with instructions and, unexpectedly, encouragement. You're doing everything right. Abusers escalate when control slips. Stay boring. Repeat your scripts. Don't argue facts with feelings. 2 days later, a stranger called my cell. Ms. Wilson? This is Anika from Pinnacle Credit. We've received an application for a personal loan in your name. We're calling to verify employment and income. My mouth went dry. I didn't apply, I said. Cancel and flag as fraud. She did. I hung up and filed a report with the PD just like Aaron had told me. Then I sat on the floor of my dorm and shook so hard my teeth clicked. Alyssa slid down beside me. We're breathing, she said. In for 4, out for 6. We did. It helped enough to stand. When I told Aaron, his voice was calm. They're testing fences, he said. You built good ones. We'll add razor wire. He filed notices with the bureaus documenting the attempt. He drafted a letter putting my parents and brother on formal notice that any further attempts to use my identity would result in criminal complaints. He CC'd a firm partner on the email. It was a warning shot a judge would see if we needed one. At work, Ms. Hahn pretended not to notice when I went pale near the soda gun. She placed a hand on my elbow just once. You're not hard to help, she said. Some people are. You're not. I wanted to cry into the ice bin. Instead, I refilled ginger ale. Then something shifted. A man in a suit came into the diner, ordered coffee, sat at the counter and watched me work. When I dropped a check at his place, he slid a card toward me. Stone and Amp. Whitcomb Investigations. I was hired to verify your residence and employment, he said quietly. From an interested party. My breath left me. Did they say who? He tapped the card. They always do. You're fine, he added. We don't bother the good ones. He finished his coffee, left cash and a note. They're getting desperate. Keep your head down. That night, I called my grandmother, the one person in that house's orbit who had ever looked at me like I was not a job. I told her the edges of the story. She told me she already knew there were edges. I'm sorry I didn't protect you more when you were little, she said, voice thin as china. You were always so capable. The word didn't hurt coming from her. I'm protecting myself now, I said. Good, she replied. It's your turn. Saturday came with hail hammering the windows and a text from my father. Come home for an hour. We need to talk. I didn't go. An hour later, my mother texted a photo of my childhood medals and certificates, dumped on the dining table. We're packing up your clutter if you're not going to be part of this family. I stared at the snapshot of the perfect attendance ribbon I'd worn like armor in 4th grade. Keep it, I typed. Then I deleted the message and set my phone face down. Sunday afternoon, Aaron called. Ready for a move? He asked. What kind? Preemptive, he said. We file for a temporary protective order against financial harassment. It's unusual, but the pattern and recording and attempted application help. Even if a judge doesn't grant it now, the filing itself is leverage. They'll know you're not bluffing. The filing required a statement. I wrote it in one sitting, hands steady. It wasn't a poem. It was a chain. Statement of overheard, plan, time and place. Recording transcript. Email and text excerpts. Credit application call log. Notice letter from counsel. Financial history showing no prior family loans. Summary line. I am 21 years old and will not be coerced into debt under false pretenses by relatives who are using emotional manipulation to exploit my credit and income. We filed on Tuesday. On Wednesday morning, my father was waiting outside my campus building, coat collar up, eyes red with fury. This is outrageous, he hissed. You've humiliated me. Students streamed around us, not looking or looking and pretending not to. I kept my bag on my shoulder and my keys between my fingers the way every girl is taught. Stop contacting me outside email, I said. If you approach me again, I'll call campus security. You think a flimsy form will protect you? He spat. No, I said. My choices will. He took a step forward, and for the first time in my life I saw my father as small. Not because of his height, but because his power had always been my belief in it. I stepped around him and walked away. My legs shook halfway to class, then they carried me the rest. That night a new email arrived. Subject: Business Proposal Final Offer. Attached, a clean PDF. It looked legitimate at a glance. LLC name, vague revenue projections, a rosy return curve, a signature line with my printed name already filled in. I opened it in preview and used the highlighter like a scalpel. Statements with no data, guarantees with no guarantor, terms with traps, personal liability buried under member obligations. At the bottom, a line. Family disputes will be resolved privately. Of course they would. I sent it to Erin and, on impulse, to Professor Reed. Her reply came fast. This is not a proposal, it's a net. Do not touch. Erin's came slower, with attachments, annotated. Also, here's a safer hobby than reading this garbage. Eat dinner. I microwaved soup. Alyssa came in with bread and a cheap bottle of wine. To not signing, she said, cleaking my mug. We ate on the floor. We laughed too loud. We watched a dumb show. It felt like oxygen after smoke. 2 days later, campus police called to say they'd issued a no-contact expectation letter to my father after he'd loitered by my building again. It wasn't legally binding. It was a warning. I didn't want to use it, I wanted it to exist. Then my Aunt Linda called. Not the nice one. The one who once told me at 15 that I should save my pretty figure for a husband, instead of taking AP chemistry. Your mother is beside herself, she said. How could you do this to family? James is struggling. I could smell her breath through the phone, coffee and outrage. I hope he recovers, I said. I won't fund it. You ungrateful girl, she snapped. After everything your parents did for you, they did the legal minimum, I said, surprising us both. I did the rest. I hung up and added her number to the block list. It felt like brushing my teeth after eating something sour. If you're still watching and if this is hitting nerves you didn't know you had, take a second to tap like so the algorithm puts this in front of the people who need it tonight. And if no one has told you lately, protecting yourself is not cruelty. It's caretaking. 2 more weeks of silence. Then court. We didn't have a full hearing, just a calendar call and a chance to show our papers. My father didn't show. My mother did, in a tailored coat that tried to argue for her. She sat on the other side of the aisle and wouldn't look at me. I had never felt so young and so old at the same time. Aaron leaned in. We're not here to win a war today, he whispered. We're here to plant a flag. The judge skimmed our filing, eyes flicking to bold phrases. Coercive, fraud attempt, recorded admissions. She denied the temporary order, insufficient immediate danger. but warned that any financial misuse could escalate this to criminal. It wasn't protection, but it was a sign on a door that said, "We're watching." Outside, my mother approached me fast, like ripping off tape. "Do you feel powerful now?" she said, voice steady, eyes wet. I inhaled. "No," I said. "I feel sad. And safe." She flinched at the last word like I'd thrown something. "We did our best," she said. "I'm sure you believe that," I replied. That night I turned 22. Alyssa taped a paper crown to my lamp. Ms. Hahn slid a slice of cherry pie into a to-go box with "Happy Birthday, Kiddo" written in Sharpie. Professor Reed sent an email with a single line, "Proud of your brain and your backbone." I cried in a bathroom stall at work and then gave a customer extra whipped cream he hadn't ordered. Spring bled into midterms. I studied. I slept. I forgot to be afraid for whole hours at a time. Then James texted from a new number. "I'm at the house. Can you come?" "Just me. Please." I showed Aaron. He raised an eyebrow. "Public place only," he said. "If you go." I went. To a park 5 blocks from the house where we'd once fed ducks stale bread, a memory I'd sanded down until it didn't hurt to touch. He was there on a bench, hands stuffed into the pocket of a jacket he hadn't earned. "I'm in Gamblers Anonymous," he said before I could speak. "I have a sponsor. I'm trying." He looked wrecked in a way attention couldn't fix. "I'm glad," I said. And I meant it. "I owe you an amends," he went on, eyes on his sneakers. "Not the fake kind. The real kind where I don't ask for anything after." He swallowed. "I told Dad to leave you alone. He won't. He thinks he's owed." He laughed, small and ugly. "Wonder where I learned that." We sat like that, the past spread out between us like a map drawn by a liar. "You can't fix this by saying sorry," I said gently. "You'll fix it by never using me as a solution again." He nodded. "I know." He looked up. "I sold my Xbox," he blurted like a child with a first-place ribbon. "I put the cash toward what I owe." "Good," I said. He waited for praise, then seemed to realize I wasn't going to give it. That more than anything might save him. When I stood to leave, he said, "Are we okay?" I wanted to tell him we were kids again and everything had been a bad dream. "We're not enemies," I said. "We're not a team either. Not yet." He nodded like that hurt and helped at the same time. Finals came. I wrote an ethics paper that bled into my life so cleanly I couldn't tell where one ended. It concluded with a sentence that felt like a door. "The first duty of care is to the self you have to live with when the room is empty." I got an A. I didn't feel victorious. I felt aligned. In June, a letter arrived at my campus mailbox. Thick, embossed. My name in my mother's handwriting. My stomach did that old childhood flip like I'd just been called downstairs for a talk. Inside, a photocopy of a prom picture, me in a dress I'd bought with tips, James flashing the peace sign behind me, and a note. "We loved you the best way we knew how. Please come home for Sunday dinner. We won't mention business again. Mom." I stared at the photo until the edges blurred. Then I put it back in the envelope and slid both into my safe deposit box file folder labeled kitchen. Triangle of light because that's where it belonged. As a record, not a request. July burned hot. I got a second campus job helping a professor run numbers for a grant. I saw Aaron less. That felt like progress. I blocked 3 more relatives who said I was breaking your mother's heart. I spent an afternoon with my grandmother clipping coupons at her Formica kitchen table while she told me stories about the dresses she'd sewn before she'd had children. "I thought I had to make beauty so other people could wear it," she said. "If I were young now, I'd make it for me." We ate ice pops like we were 10. You think this would be the point where the story stops, right? Where I put down my tools and live the life I built. But exploitation tries one last door before it gives up. In August, my father emailed. Subject: urgent tax issue. We need your signature to fix a withholding error from years ago. If you don't sign, there will be penalties for all of us. He attached a PDF. I didn't open it. I forwarded it to Aaron. He called within minutes. "Do not sign," he said. "They've positioned you as a manager on paper somewhere. We'll file a written demand to remove you." We did. We sent it to a registered agent who looked like a name made up in a rush. We CC'd the state. We copied the IRS Identity Protection Unit. We included the judge's earlier warning. And then, because sunlight sometimes burns mold, Aaron sent a separate letter directly to my father. Further attempts to involve Samantha Wilson in any financial document without her informed written consent will be pursued as fraud. You are advised to seek counsel. No reply. Not to that. But at 11:24 p.m., my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. You think you won? Family is forever. I blocked it. I wrote in my notebook a line I would later tape to my mirror. Family is a verb. It's not what you are. It's what you do. If you've stayed through this stretch of my story, thank you. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Not for numbers, but so this kind of roadmap lives in your pocket the day you realize you need it. We're not done. The end of part 2 is the start of a fire break. Because the last thing they tried, the thing that could have wrecked me if I hadn't built my fences, came on a day so ordinary it almost felt rehearsed. It was the first week of September. The light had that golden, forgiving angle it gets when summer pretends it might last. I was at the bank to deposit tips when the teller frowned at her screen. Huh, she said. Odd flag on your profile. Something about a joint. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said that out loud. My heart hammered. Can you print my profile notes? I can't, she said, apologetic. But I can call the manager. He came, a man with the soft hands of someone who signs forms rather than lifts boxes. Ms. Wilson, he said, guiding me to a tiny glass office. Our system shows an attempted addition of a joint owner to your personal account last week. It was blocked by your verbal password requirement. He smiled, a small, proud smile. Pine cone. The word felt like a life jacket. Do you have the requester's name? I asked. He slid a paper across the desk. Robert Wilson. My father had walked into a branch with my birth date and address and tried to attach himself to my money. The fence had held. We thought it might be fraud, the manager said. We flagged your file and notified our security team. He glanced at me. Do you want to place a caution on all contact with your profile? Yes, I said. And I want a copy of whatever you can legally give me. He nodded. We'll prepare a statement. I walked out into the honey gold light and sat on a concrete planter and let my legs shake. I called Aaron. We send them the statement, he said. We send it to the same judge. We stack the straws until the camel looks at the load and finally sits down. That night I wrote my future self a letter and dated it a year ahead. I wrote, you did not dream this. You did not make it bigger than it was. You did not ruin a family by insisting on not being ruined inside it. You chose yourself. You will choose yourself again. And if anyone ever asks you for proof that you were right to do so, open the folder named Triangle of Light. Then I slid the letter into the safe deposit box with the rest. Part 2 ends not with a door slamming but with a hinge oiled and a hand on the knob. The legal pieces were set. The emotional pieces, those take longer. In part 3 I'll tell you what happened when everything finally snapped. The call that turned the lights on in every room, the meeting where I put the recording on the table, the last thing my father said to me as a father. And I'll tell you what I did with the power I didn't want but finally accepted was mine. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, you know how deep it cuts. And if you're still watching, it means you understand. Please, drop a heart in the comments so I know I'm not alone. I woke up the next morning with swollen eyes and a chest that felt bruised from holding back sobs. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. For a split second I hoped it was someone checking in on me, asking if I was okay. But no, it was a group text from my stepmother. A photo of my brother standing next to his brand new car in the driveway, a bright bow perched on the hood. Proud of you, James. You deserve this. I stared at the screen until the image blurred. My brother, grinning, leaning against the shiny metal. My father, his hand resting on James's shoulder. Me. Invisible. Forgotten. Cast into the shadows even in my own home. That moment lit a fire inside me, not of envy but of pure determination. If they thought I was weak enough to break, they were wrong. Classes that day blurred by. My professors spoke, but I didn't hear much. All I could think about was how my family had reduced me to a pawn in their financial games, stripping me of agency and dignity. My trust fund was supposed to secure my education to help me build a future. Instead, it had been hijacked to keep my father's failing business afloat, as though my life could be collateral damage. That night, I sat on the cold steps outside campus with my laptop balanced on my knees. I researched until my eyes burned. Trust funds. Mismanagement. Legal guardianship. I learned that what they had done wasn't just cruel, it was unlawful. But going against my family meant stepping into a war I wasn't sure I could win. I was 21, alone and terrified. Still, a tiny voice whispered, "If not now, then when?" The next week I reached out to my Uncle Walter. He wasn't close to us. Years of tension had created distance. But he was the only one I could think of who might care. My fingers trembled as I typed the email. "Uncle Walter, I know we haven't spoken in a while, but I need help. Dad and Diana are using my trust fund for their own expenses. I don't know what to do. Please just hear me out." I almost didn't send it. But when I finally hit send, I felt something shift in me, like I had taken the first real step toward reclaiming my life. Days passed. No response. My hope dwindled. I started to wonder if maybe I really was alone. But then late one evening, as I sat in the library trying to finish a paper, my phone buzzed. "Samantha, I got your email. Meet me this weekend. Don't tell your father." I swear my heart stopped. For the first time in months, I felt a sliver of relief. Someone had heard me. Someone believed me. When I met Walter at a small diner off the highway, he looked older than I remembered, gray threading through his hair, his face lined with worry. But when his eyes met mine, there was no judgment, only concern. "Tell me everything," he said. So I did. I poured it all out. The midnight whispers, the stolen fund, the new car, the piggy bank. The betrayal, the humiliation, the nights I'd spent crying in silence. His expression hardened with every word. By the time I finished, his hands were clenched into fists on the table. "This isn't just wrong," he said. "It's criminal. And you're not going to fight this alone." Something inside me cracked open at those words. For the first time, I wasn't fighting shadows by myself. The weeks that followed felt like a blur of paperwork and meetings. Walter introduced me to a lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman who didn't flinch when I told her everything. "We'll get this sorted," she promised. It was the first time I'd heard an adult say those words and actually believe them. But the road wasn't easy. My father and Diana fought back hard. They painted me as ungrateful, as a selfish child trying to tear apart her family. They spread lies about me, whispered poison into every ear that would listen. Some relatives stopped returning my calls. Others looked at me with pity, like I was crazy for going against my own blood. Every night, I lay awake wondering if I'd made a mistake. But then I'd remember that photo, James with his car, me with $1. And the doubt would dissolve into determination. Months dragged on, but slowly the tide began to turn. Documents surfaced. Bank statements, transfers, emails. That proved the truth. The trust fund had been siphoned into the business. My education had been collateral for their greed. The final court hearing was surreal. Sitting across the room from my father, I felt 1,000 emotions. Rage, sadness, betrayal, but above all, clarity. The girl who once froze on the staircase, gripping the banister in fear, was gone. I wasn't a pawn anymore. I was my own person, ready to fight for myself. When the judge ruled in my favor, restoring my trust fund and naming me the rightful controller of my own finances, I couldn't hold back tears. My father glared at me with eyes like steel. My stepmother pursed her lips in silent fury. My brother shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. But me, I felt free. Walking out of that courtroom, Walter's arm around my shoulders, I realized something powerful. Revenge doesn't always come in grand, cinematic gestures. Sometimes, it's as simple as standing up for yourself and refusing to be silenced. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their love either. I had my life back and I was going to make it count. So when people ask me what happened after, I tell them this. My family's betrayal nearly broke me. But it also built me into someone stronger, someone who knows her worth. And in the end, that was the sweetest revenge of all. And if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been dismissed or betrayed, know this. You are not alone. You are not powerless. And sometimes walking away is the bravest, most powerful thing you can do. If this story touched you, hit the like button and let me know in the comments if you've ever had to walk away from a toxic situation. Don't forget to subscribe for more true family stories, each one reminding us that strength can be born from pain. And stay tuned because the next story might just change the way you see family forever.